children, good morning. This is Somasundari. Today we are discussing about 9th standard history unit 2. The topic is ancient civilizations. The term civilization basically means the level of development at which people live together peacefully in communities. Ancient civilization refer specifically to the first settled and stable communities that became the basis for later societies, nations, and empires. The study of ancient civilization is concerned with the earlier segments of the much broader subject called ancient history. Societies that adopted complex ways of life were more organized than the early hunter gatherer and Neolithic farming societies. Urban societies had social stratification and well planned cities. They practiced crafts, engaged in trade and exchange, adopted science and technology, and formed political organization. Hence, the term civilization is used to distinguish them from the early forms of societies. However, they should not be considered superior to other forms of societies since each culture or civilization had its own unique features. Children, next I'll explain early societies and early state formation. The societies before the modern times are classified as bands, tribes, chiefdoms, and pro-state by scholars. Early societies were organized as bands during the pre-Mesolithic age. What is the meaning of bands? Bands were small group of people who were nomadic, making their living on hunting and gathering. Once again, what is the meaning of bands? Bands were small group of people who were nomadic, making their living on hunting and gathering. As a nomadic way of life came into practice, large group of people were concentrated in the villages. They were organized as tribal communities with a sedentary or semi-sedentary lifestyle. The tribal organizations that developed in the Mesolithic means were mostly egalitarian in nature. The chiefdoms are political formations larger than the tribal level formations. People under chiefdoms lived over a larger area than the areas covered by tribes. Social distinction existed among these groups in terms of wealth and authority. The cultural development after the Neolithic period in certain regions that had a flowering river in rich and fertile alluvial soil gave rise to civilizations. In the post-Neolithic period, that is in the Bronze Age societies, early form the state originated in the areas where agricultural surplus and population density was more. The early states had a political system that controlled many smaller regions, chiefs and cities through conquest. The kings and royals occupied higher position in social hierarchy. Palatial buildings were built for their dwelling. Priests, kings, officials, and traders formed the middle state. Craft persons and peasants formed the lower sections in this hierarchical social system. Taxes were collected from the peasants and artisans. Language was refined. Literary texts were composed and script developed. Science, including mathematics and astronomy, emerged from research. The process of urbanization began. Children, next I'll explain early civilizations. Civilization is seen as an advanced, organized way of life. It instilled a way of life that could be considered as an adaptation to particular environmental and cultural contexts. When it became necessary for large number of people to live in close proximity. They brought in planning, organization, and specialization. Settlements were planned and laid out, a polity emerged, society became organized, and food production and graft production were regulated. As civilization began to take shape, huge buildings were built, the art of writing developed, and science and technology contributed to the betterment of society. The surplus food production by the farmers in the fertile regions supported the livelihood of a large number of people. The people who did not cultivate crops engaged in artisanal activities such as making of bronze tools, ornaments, and pottery. Priests, scribes, nobles, rulers, administrators, and craftspersons became part of this civilization. Students, what are the important early civilizations? The Egyptian civilization, Mesopotamian civilization, the Chinese civilization, and also the Indus Valley civilizations. While these civilizations flourished in certain regions, people in other parts of the world lived as hunter, gatherers, and pastoralists. The hunter gatherers and pastoralists maintained their relationship with these civilizations through interactions. Their history is also equally important. During the time of these civilizations, South India witnessed the emergence of Neolithic agro-pastoral communities and microlith form of life by hunters gatherers. Children, now I'll explain Egyptian civilization. As one of the oldest civilization, Egyptian civilization is one of the oldest civilization. The Egyptian civilization is known for its monumental architecture, agriculture, arts, sciences, and crafts at a very early age. Where is Egypt? Egypt lies in the northeastern corner of the African continent. It is bounded by Red Sea on the east and Mediterranean Sea in the north. Egypt is irrigated by the river Nile, which originates in Lake Victoria in the south and flow into the Mediterranean Sea in the north. Deserts are sown on both sides of the Nile River. The Egyptian civilization depended solely upon the flow of river Nile, and hence Egypt was called as the gift of Nile by the Greek historian Herodotus. The Nile was also served as a means of transport. The Nile Valley is very rich and fertile as the river deposits fresh alluvium every year. This alluvium nurtured agriculture and helped to produce surplus of food grains, leading to the development of Egyptian civilization. The dry region on both sides of the Nile, however, remain deserts. The Egyptian kingdom, generally controlled by whole of Nile Valley, and when they become weak, the feudal lords and invaders dominated the region. Egypt was invaded by Hyksos, the Persians and the Greeks under the Alexander the Great in 332 BC, and later by the Romans. Ptolemies ruled Egypt after Alexander's conquest. At the end of the Ptolemaic rule, Roman influence became dominant. Cleopatra 7. Julius Caesar and Mark Antony dominated the political affairs of the pre-Roman Egypt. In 30 BC, the Roman Empire annexed Egypt. After the conquest by Romans, Egypt became intimately connected with Sangam age Tamilakam by the sea route. Who are Hyksos? The Hyksos were the ruler of 15th dynasty, the Egypt, and they were probably from West Asia. Who are Persians? Persians are the people from the region of Persia, the ancient Iran. Greek refers to the language and people the modern day nation state of Greece in Europe. Rome. Rome refers to the ancient Roman Empire. which had its capital the city of Rome in Italy. The Egyptian king was known as the Pharaoh. A Pharaoh was not most important and powerful person in the kingdom. Who was Pharaoh? The Egyptian king was known as the Pharaoh. He was a head of the government and high priest of every temple. The people of Egypt considered the Pharaoh to be a half man, half god. The people treated Pharaoh as a divine form. Under the Pharaoh, there was a hierarchy of officials including viziers, the governors of provinces, local mayors, and tax collectors. The entire social system was supported by the work and production of artisans, including stonecutters, masons, forters, carpenters, coppersmiths, and goldsmiths, peasants, and workers. Land belonged to the king and was assigned to the officials. Slavery was not common, but captives were used as slaves. What is the meaning of viziers? The viziers were the high officials who administered territories under the direction of the Pharaoh. What is the meaning of viziers? The viziers were high officials who administered territories under the direction of the pharaohs. The Egyptians believed the life after death. Therefore, they preserved the dead body. The art of preserving dead body is known as mummification. Pyramids and tombs were built to preserve the dead body of pharaohs. Students, write short note of mummies of Egypt. Listen carefully. Write short note of mummies of Egypt. The preserved dead body is called the mummy. The Egyptians had the tradition of preserving the dead bodies using natron salt, a combination of sodium carbonate and sodium bicarbonate. The preservation process is called mummification. After 40 days, when the salt absorbed all the moisture, the body was filled with sawdust and wrapped with strips of linen cloth and covered with a fabric. The body was stored in a stone coffin called sarcophagus.
This is a mummy of a young man named Heraclides. He died in Egypt in the 1st century AD when he was about 20 years old. Mummification was developed by the ancient Egyptians to preserve the body for the afterlife. Typically, all internal organs were removed before mummification, with the exception of the heart. But in this case, the heart was removed and the lungs were left intact. Next, the body was covered with salt and left for about 40 days, until all moisture was eliminated. Perfumed oils and plant resins were rubbed on the body. Thick layers of resin were applied to glue the strips of linen that were wrapped around the body. The mummy was placed on a wooden board, and more wrappings bound them together. A mysterious pouch, perhaps of religious significance, was placed on the chest. A mummified ibis, a wading bird with a slender, down-curved bill, was placed on the abdomen. Ibis mummies commonly served as votive offerings to the gods, but this is an unusual case of a bird being mummified with a deceased human. Long linen strips further secured the wrappings. A portrait panel of Heraclides was placed over the face. A large linen cloth was wrapped around the mummy. The shroud was painted red with an imported lead-based pigment. This treatment is rare. Very few red shroud mummies are known to exist. Egyptian symbols of protection and rebirth were painted on the outer cloth with pigments and gold. Finally, Heraclides' name was written in Greek at the feet. Thanks to this remarkable mummification process, Heraclides' body is with us today.
The famous Egyptian pharaoh Tutankhamun's tomb with a rich variety of offerings is located near Luxor in Egypt. The mask of his mummy, made of gold and decorated with precious stones, is an important artifact of the Egyptian civilization. Now I explain Egyptian agriculture and trade. The Egyptians cultivated wheat, barley, millets, vegetables, fruits, papyrus, and cotton. Papyrus was used for making rope, mats, and sandals, and later for producing paper. What is fibrous? The fibrous means the water plant. They domesticated cattle, sheep, goat, and pigs, and hunted wild animals. They had pets such as dogs, cats, and monkeys. What are the pet animals of Egyptians? Dog, cats, and monkeys. The Egyptians had trade relations with Lebanon, Syria, Phoenicia, Palestine, and Syria. Gold, silver, and ivory were imported, and they acquired the lapis lazuli, a precious stone of bluish color from Afghanistan. Art and architecture of Egyptians. The Egyptians excelled in art and architecture. Their writing is also a form of art. Numerous sculptures, painting, and carvings attest to the artistic skills of Egyptians. The pyramid of massive monuments built as tombs of mourning to the pharaohs. The Great Pyramid near the Cairo are known as the Giza pyramids. Pyramids are considered to be one of the wonders of the world. They were built between 2575 and 2465 BC. These monuments display the engineering, architectural, and human resource management skills of the Egyptians. The Great Sphinx of Giza is a massive limestone image of a lion with a human head. It is dated to the time of Pharaoh Khafre. It is one of the largest sculptures of the world and measures 73 meters in length and 20 meters in height. Next, the religion of Egyptians. The Egyptians was a complex system of polytheistic belief and rituals that formed an integral part of ancient Egyptian society. At various times, certain gods became preeminent over the others. Egyptians practiced polytheism. What is the meaning of polytheism? Polytheism means worship of more than one god or belief in many gods. Ammon, Re, Zeth, Thoth, Horus, and Anubis are some of the gods of Egyptians. They worshipped many gods, but its sun god Re was the predominant one. Later on, the sun god was called Ammon. The Ammon was considered to be the king of gods. Anubis is the god of death related to embalming of the dead. He is considered the protector of the dead and depicted with the jackal head. Thoth, god of writing and learning. He was the head of the birds and ibis. Children, now we saw the philosophy, science and literature of Egyptians. The Egyptian civilization excelled in science, literature, philosophy, astronomy, mathematics and the measurement system. Sundial, water clock and glass were developed by the Egyptians. They devised a solar calendar that consisted of 12 months of 30 days each with 5 days added in the end of the year. This calendar was introduced in the early of 4200 BC. Literary works include treatises on mathematics, astronomy, medicine, magic and religion. The Egyptians also distinguished themselves in painting, art, sculpture, poetry, music and weaving. Children, now I will explain the writing system of Egyptian civilization. The Egyptians were well known for their writing system. Their writing form is known as hieroglyphic. What is the meaning of hieroglyphic? The word hieroglyphic literally means sacred carvings. The Egyptians first used hieroglyphic exclusively for inscriptions carved or painted on temple walls. There are over 700 hieroglyphic symbols in the ancient Egyptian alphabet. Hieroglyphic was used in the inscription on seals and other objects. Hieratic and another form of writing was used for common purposes. This form of writing used a pictogram-based system. It was developed around 3000 BC and many texts and books were writing using this script. The Egyptian writing system was deciphered by the French scholar Francois Champollion. He used the Rosetta Stone, a triangle inscription, for deciphering the script. The inscription, which was written in hieroglyphic, Demotic and Greek, was taken to France by Napoleon and from there it was taken to England. Now this inscription is on display in the British Museum in London. The word paper comes from papyrus. What is papyrus? The papyrus means water plant. The Egyptians wrote on the leaves of plant called papyrus, the kind of reed which grow on the banks of Nile. Children, what are the contribution of the Egyptian civilization? The Egyptian developed a solar calendar system. The pyramid and their designs show their mathematical and surveying skills. Hieroglyphic writing system attest to their skills in handling symbols. Preservation of human body in the forms of mummies. They applied innovation in the use of science and technology. Children, very important short answer. What are the contribution of Egyptian civilization? Without the Egyptians, we would not be the people we are today. The amount of knowledge that has been provided from ancient Egyptian times has shaped our modern day world inside and out. Okay, children, now we are going to end of this session. I hope you are all understanding today's topic. I'll give you one more important work. Handwriting is very important to you. So, whenever you will revise the portion, you must write at least 2 times. Don't forget it. You must improve your writing skill. Okay? Not only social. You must practice all subjects. Okay, children. Thank you. See you next class.